Now, if you'd like to recreate Blender's camera Shakify effect inside iClone, it's actually very easy. Hello everyone. First of all, we're going to disable a few settings that may be putting unnecessary strain on the computer. Let's start by opening the visual settings. As you can see, we currently have the effects enabled, so we'll disable them. We'll also turn off the post effects. Since the toon shader isn't being used, there's no point in leaving it enabled. Next, we'll reduce the shadow quality to 128, or simply disable shadows altogether to make the viewport run much more smoothly. We'll also disable ambient occlusion and lower the texture quality. It's a very straightforward process. Now, if you'd like to recreate Blender's camera Shakify effect inside iClone, it's actually very easy. As you can see here, I have two cameras with exactly the same settings. One of them has been converted into a Shakify camera, while the other is a standard camera with no additional animation applied. Let's activate the camera with the Shakify effect and compare the difference. This is genuinely a worthwhile step because it produces a much more cinematic result. Let's play the animation in a loop. Notice how the camera moves. It feels as though someone is standing behind the scenes filming our main character, Vex, the protagonist of the Red Eye series, with a handheld camera. Now let's switch back to the normal camera, the one without any keyframes or additional movement. The scene immediately feels rather dull. Vex is simply standing there, watching or perhaps searching for something. I honestly don't know what she's looking for. Let's switch back to the close-up camera once again. The difference is remarkable. This creates a fantastic cinematic effect that simply isn't possible to achieve directly inside iClone. The process is extremely simple. Select the camera, then open the Blender Pipeline plugin. Click Blender Go or Link Data. Then choose Camera Go to send the camera from iClone to Blender. We'll wait a few moments while the transfer completes. The camera has now arrived in Blender with exactly the same position, rotation, and viewing angle as it had inside iClone. For demonstration purposes, let's add a simple cube or any other object so we can clearly see how the effect works. I'll move the cube until it's positioned directly in front of the camera. Then I'll press numpad 0 to switch to the camera view and scale the cube so that the camera movement becomes much easier to notice. If you look closely, you'll see that my Blender scene contains 122 frames, whereas iClone exports the animation with 121 frames. This is a very important detail that you need to remember. After exporting the camera animation from iClone, you'll need to adjust the timeline by 1 frame in Blender. It's an incredibly simple fix. It only takes a quick drag with the mouse. Next, select the camera, open the Shakify panel, and make sure you've installed the add-on. It's completely free. Choose the close-up preset and click Apply. As you can see, if the effect feels too strong, you can easily reduce its intensity. Personally, I'll lower it to around 0.2, which gives a much more subtle and natural handheld movement. Once that's done, return to the camera list. We already have our original camera, which we probably won't need anymore, so we can remove it if we like. Now select the newly created camera and switch back to Blender. Press N to open the side panel. Here you'll find the iClone Blender pipeline tools. All we have to do now is return to the pipeline panel and click Sequence. Then switch back to iClone. You'll notice that the synchronization takes place automatically, and the camera animation transfers across smoothly. The entire process is quick, straightforward, and produces a highly professional result. If we create another camera and activate it instead, you'll notice that it has no handheld movement whatsoever. However, the camera with the Shakify effect looks far more cinematic and professional. If you animate the character and notice that the camera appears slightly stiff or doesn't follow the movement perfectly, don't worry. In that case, simply move the camera keyframes forwards or backwards by a single frame. That small adjustment is usually enough to correct the timing. I'll undo that step now because in this example, the camera itself doesn't require any further adjustment. As you can see, if you aren't happy with the camera movement and would like to change it, there's one important thing to remember. Always return to the very first frame of the sequence before making any adjustments. You'll notice that my timeline starts at frame 121. People often ask why I never begin animating on frame 0 or frame 1. The reason is quite simple. My scenes usually include hair and clothing simulations, and those simulations need time to settle before the actual animation begins. If I start animating the character on frame 0 or frame 1, the simulation won't have enough time to initialize properly. Instead, I allow the simulation to run for around 10 to 20 frames, giving the hair and clothing enough time to settle naturally before the real animation starts. As you can see, I've already baked the hair simulation, just as we discussed earlier. Now, whenever you want to switch to a different camera, you can simply select it from the camera list. If you like this particular handheld effect, all you need to do is create a sequence. It's a very quick and straightforward workflow. Let's switch back here. Now everything has updated correctly, and the same camera movement has been transferred successfully. The result looks fantastic. This is exactly the sort of feature that iClone is still missing, which is why this workflow can make such a big difference. If you'd like me to go into much greater detail and break down the entire scene, including the lighting, characters, visual effects, post-effects, environment, animation, and every step of the workflow, simply leave a comment, and I'll be more than happy to create a full tutorial. For now, I'll leave you with the finished scene. And don't forget, the second episode of the Red Eye series will be released very soon.